Welcome to The Outlet, an OTG production.
Welcome to the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. John Aiello is here. Nick Faye's here. I'm Parth Goradia. I want to thank you for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at OTGBasketball. What's going on, guys?
Yo, what's going on, everybody? What's the old saying? April flowers bring. Is it April showers bring May flowers? So now we got flowers coming up for the month of May. So I'm looking forward to some angels, as DJ Khaled likes to say on Snapchat.
Yeah. Hopefully a nice month of May. I know Part's happy his team just won, advanced into the second round.
Yeah, I'm happy Miami could put out. We're going to get to that. We're going to do some quick hits, just some quick topics, get your guys' thoughts. We'll do a quick recap of the first round. We'll do predictions for the second round, and we'll just talk about some of our favorite players to watch at each of our positions and just some scenarios we'll throw out there. But let's get right into some quick hits. Guys, Cavs and Spurs both had first-round sweeps, kind of under the radar. Just give me some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely flew under the radar. I think everyone kind of got reminded when the Spurs blew out OKC last night. But the Cavs, I think, are kind of flew under the radar too. They look pretty good. You know, it was nice to see Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love step up. If LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love all play well, it's going to be really tough for anybody to beat them in the East.
Yeah, I think people, Detroit, they were a fringe playoff team when they made the trade for Tobias, and surprisingly, I thought they're going to take a step back for a little while, but they actually played better, and they they got into that 8 seed. But they're a young team, and they're coached by a veteran coach who has an NBA Finals appearance under his belt. So the fact that I think Cleveland swept that series, it surprised me. I honestly thought it was going to go 5, maybe even 6 games. But I wasn't surprised that Detroit played them tough all series. Like I said, they have a very young team, but they're very talented. I think it shows you, I think Cleveland is just going to run through the East. There's no other team the only team I saw in the regular season that could possibly pose a threat was Toronto, but they're looking like the same old Toronto. They're struggling with the Indiana Pacers, who they're much more talented than in the first round. I feel like Atlanta could give them a tough series because I think Millsap might match up well with LeBron, but other than that, I think Cleveland's just going to run through the East.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think there's any team that plays consistently well enough to challenge Cleveland or even beat them in a 7-game series. I think the East is just too inconsistent at this point. The Cavs are by default the most consistent team and should be able to make the finals without any real struggle. But if Miami does get past the Pacers or Toronto, and Bosh comes back, I think that could be an interesting series. I hope those two match up, but without Bosh, I don't think Miami can really take 4 out of 7 against Cleveland.
There's been some rumors that Bosh has been trying to push a return, him and his wife. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, they think he can play. I think his personal doctor said he's cleared to go, but I don't think Miami's going to clear him. I think it's too dangerous for the organization to do that. So I don't think he comes back until next season, but who knows?
Yeah, it's not worth it. I mean, you think about if Bosh, I'm assuming his personal doctor is saying he's good and the team doctors are saying no. So
Correct.
I'm assuming it's something like that. Yeah, so you think about that's a big liability if he plays and, God forbid something happens to him. And that's going to be very bad for the Heat organization, like you said. So I think it's best that he just sits out the playoffs. But it would be pretty incredible to imagine how well they're playing now, and I mean especially how well they played today. And if you included Bosh in that mix and they got them to play well, that would be a dangerous team for Cleveland. I think probably the only dangerous team that Cleveland would have to face.
Right. It sucks seeing an injury kind of derail a potential playoff series, and that's kind of what we got in the West as well, with CP3 and Griffin getting hurt and then being bounced by Portland. And I was really excited for that potential series when I heard Curry was out. Not to say that I was happy that Curry was out, but just the intrigue part of that, hey, the Golden State Warriors could really lose before even making the Western Conference Finals. And then the next night, CP3 and Griffin get hurt. and then the Blazers send the Clippers packing. So I think that really hurts the second round in the Western Conference. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a tough blow for the Clippers. They probably, you could realistically say they had a chance at the finals and definitely a chance at the Western Conference Finals, especially with Curry out. But then to go have Blake and CP3, it'd be one thing if maybe Blake was out, and they did play well without him for a while, so they probably still be able to compete a little bit. But without both of them, they have no chance. They had no chance.
Yeah, it's a shame too. And when you look at it last year compared to this year, the injuries, for the most part, the stars played most of the season. Obviously, Blake missed a lot of time, but I feel like last year there was a lot of stars that missed a lot. Like Durant was out, Melo was out, Paul George was out. But this year, guys are healthy, and then all of a sudden, in the playoffs, you have 3 injuries to 3 major, 3 big time players, and it's upsetting because I was really looking forward to that matchup. I think Paul seems to know how to play Stephen Curry. He's very physical with him, and he's not afraid to get physical with him. And I think that would have been a good matchup for at least 4 games. So it's upsetting, but I do like this Lillard and Steph, and well, hopefully Steph will be back by like game 3. That's what he said today in the ESPN interview. But I like this Lillard and Steph matchup too. But today didn't go well, but I think that this series will end up being pretty competitive.
Yeah, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Austin Rivers, who filled in for Chris Paul and then got whacked in the face by Alfredo Camino's elbow and got busted up. It looked like he was in a boxing match post-game. But he played so well that game, basically with one eye. And then I wanted you guys to talk about that, what you guys thought. Just if you found newfound respect for him, because I sure did.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of respect. Like you said, he was playing with one eye. He had the bandage covering half of his eye. His eye was swollen. So, that kid's tough. And, he played pretty good in the playoffs last year. So he steps up in the playoffs. That's definitely always something you want to see out of a player. So maybe going forward, he can continue to improve his game.
Yeah, well, Rivers coming out of high school was one of the top prospects. I think he was the number 1 or number 2 prospect coming out. And he was good at Duke that one year, but since he got to the league, he kind of fell off. He played well in the playoffs last year and kind of got his reputation back up, and then he played pretty well this year off the bench. And then he played really well in that game, like you said yesterday, and he got hurt. So I think he's trying to build his name back up and make people remember how good he was and how good he still can be. But unfortunately, I just feel like his talent level, I don't know if he's ever going to be anything other than a 6-man or a good backup point guard. But I earned a lot of respect for him because you could tell in that interview. His left eye was just completely shut. And I read this article too, an ESPN article that I showed you, Parth. And it was basically, I can't remember who the writer was, but they were asking him about Doc, and he was talking about his relationship with Doc, and he says, quote, "He doesn't really share his life outside of basketball with me, Austin." This is the article. Austin said, "He and I don't know each other like that. We know each other as strictly basketball. A lot of people on the outside don't understand that because people think we have a relationship like every other father and son. We just don't. That's because he's been gone my whole life, and that's fine." Talks about some other stuff too after that, but I just read that and I was like, man, you think about it, that's just crazy because I think you don't people from the outside, you don't really, a lot of our fathers for the most part are there in our lives and stuff. And so I feel like you look at it for NBA children, their fathers are always on the road and things like that. So it's something that I thought about, and something you kind of take for granted. And I feel like he's a very tough kid because I have a lot more respect for him because I kind of figured he grew up maybe kind of spoiled or something like that. I don't know, but I get a vibe that he's got a chip on his shoulder. If you guys kind of get what I'm saying with that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I have newfound respect for him because he played through the eye and because of that quote. I think it humanized him a little bit, and I think more players should be that honest. Like Draymond did that. Not to go back to the Warriors, because I feel like everyone goes to the Warriors. But Draymond mentioned to that one reporter who was asking him about the floods, and it kind of humanized Draymond as well. So I think more NBA players should try and strive to just be honest. I know it might hurt their brand, but I think as fans we appreciate when they're honest instead of just giving those cliche, we'll take it one game at a time, we're just trying to get better every day, those kind of answers, which don't really tell you much.
Yeah, and that's why Damian Lillard's probably my favorite point guard to watch now. He's just such an honest guy, and I feel like when they would ask him questions like, "You were doing your Steph Curry thing tonight," and he was like, "No, I was just doing me, or I was doing my Damian Lillard." Like, like he's just such an honest guy with the media, and there's so many guys now you watch, and you can tell they're putting up a front, and you can't really tell like when they're being truthful and stuff, and it's a shame. And Lillard, you can tell he's just an honest guy, and he just is going to do what he feels is best for him, and he's not going to be anybody else but himself. So it's refreshing, and I wish more guys were like that now.
Yeah, and a coach who did that in a press conference after his team was eliminated was Dave Joerger, who really showed his emotion and humanized himself as well in front of the public. He started crying when he was talking about how hard his players fought, how difficult this season has been. What do you guys think of his post-game press conference after the Spurs swept his Grizzlies?
Yeah, a lot of respect for him as well. I mean, he's showing all of his emotion. He's putting it out there, and you got to respect that team in general, just, getting to the playoffs. And they got swept, but, they did try to put up a fight. They just weren't very talented. I think they have 28 different players on their roster, so you got to give him a lot of credit. And for him to invest that much in that team, and even though he knows that they're not going to go that far, it tells you a lot about him.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just been such a tough year. I really feel for him as a coach because he's a very good coach. I mean, after Lionel Hollins left, they didn't miss a beat, and I think, honestly, they kind of improved under Dave Joerger. But there was a point, I think, after the first month where they were talking about firing him because Memphis was really struggling from the get-go. But they started to get it together, and, they had so many – I mean, Conley was kind of off and on injured all year, and then Gasol obviously had the broken bone in his foot. And so he missed probably the last 20 games, last 25 games. So he missed a lot of time. And you can tell with all the different players that it was just a tough year for him, but he's such a talented coach. And I think Memphis needs to retain him as their head coach because there's not too many guys that are a better coach than Dave Joerger. And you can tell he really cares about the players with how passionate he was in that post-game speech.
Yeah, he was great. A team that barely showed any emotion and was ready for their vacation. The Houston Rockets, one of the most disappointing teams throughout the whole regular season and throughout the playoffs. Barely got one game with a Steph-less Golden State Warriors team. Where do you think Houston goes now?
It's honestly, they need to get a lot of new players. They need to get a good coach in there, and they need to set a new mentality. I think there's way too much nonsense with that team. They're not playing defense. I mean, the leadership's not great. There seems to be no discipline, no set mentality. You think of different teams, you think of what they're going to do. You don't really know what you're going to get with the Rockets consistently. So I feel like a new head coach, some new tough players, tough-minded, high basketball IQ guys who are going to put effort on the floor on both ends. And, I mean, the only person I know you guarantee you have to keep is James Harden. Other than that, I mean, there's not a ton of great guys in their team. I'm sure there's some they want to keep, but for the most part, I feel like they're going to come back looking like a new team.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their salary outlook for next year on hoopshype.com. And, Dwight has the player option for this year, and he's gone without question.
He's opting out for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely opting out. They have Corey Brewer, Trevor Ariza, who I don't know if you guys saw this. I saw a tweet today. I guess some fan or someone heckled him during the season over a direct message on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and he was direct messaging him back saying, "Now that the season's over, let's get it" or something. And apparently the guy gave him the address. So I don't know, but apparently Trevor Ariza was going to some guy's house to fight him, which is just like, I mean, it's just
Houston Rockets.
Yeah, what is it?
Talk about a frustrating season.
Yeah, and so Pat Beverly's under contract for next year. McDaniels, Jones is definitely. I think Jones has a qualifying offer. I don't know if he'll be back. Demo, I don't know if he'll be back. He also has a qualifying offer. And then they have some other guys. Sam Decker is the rookie who didn't really play at all. I don't know if I saw him play at all this year.
He was in a suit. He
looked good in that Armani suit. So I don't know what this team's going to look like next year. I wouldn't be surprised if they had 10 different guys. I feel like everybody who's under contract for next year should be, on the trade block. even I don't want to say Harden should be too, because I think if he had the right coach who's going to discipline him and if he has the right guys around him, he can take a team far because he's so talented offensively. But he's got to make the commitment defensively, or else I don't know if he's ever going to take that team to the next level. Kind of like with Melo. Melo never committed defensively. He was always a great scorer, but he never committed defensively to being an elite player. And I feel like James Harden has to do that. It's such a disappointing season because I thought they were going to be so good this year. A lot of experts had them to pick to be their championship team because they were the same team plus Ty Lawson, but it just didn't work out that way.
Yeah, I think Parth, when we had them in the preview, we had them like 5th in the West.
The Rockets, I think we had them 5th or 6th overall.
Yeah.
Might have been 5th or 6th in the West as well, but they were a big disappointment.
Yeah, they definitely let us down.
And one guy who did not let us down, of course, the infamous purple shirt man from Game 6 in the Charlotte-Miami series. And I remember pointing this out to John on Snapchat. John, do you remember this? I put this as my Snap story, and I was like, dude, I found the whitest dude in Charlotte during Game 4. He was bouncing up and down, like throwing his hands up, acting a fool. But then he really got famous in Game 6, heckling D Wade when D Wade put on that classic Flash performance.
Yeah, I remember seeing that guy, and I think in Game 4, and him having that headband thing, whatever it is, on his head, in his purple shirt. But yeah, D Wade, he was huge finishing Game 6. He closed on both ends. He hit 2 threes. D Wade's not a three-point shooter, and then he had that huge block on Kemba Walker. So that's a classic performance I won't forget.
So did this guy basically, was it kind of like Spike Lee with Reggie Miller? Did this guy just hype up D Wade to have basically just let D Wade just dominate the rest of the game and propel the Heat team to a win? Is that what this guy basically did?
Well, I don't know if he propelled Miami to a win because he wasn't playing defense to decide on the court. But
yeah,
I guess you could say something similar to Spike Lee and Reggie Miller. I've read in an article from the Charlotte Observer that this guy has been disciplined before, heckling Kevin Durant. He said he was telling D Wade to retire, and then D Wade was like, "No, your team can go on vacation, and you can go on vacation as well."
Huh.
So, yeah, I don't know if he drove Miami to a win, but he certainly got everyone's attention. Like the announcers were talking about him as well.
Yeah, if I were if I were Charlotte, I would have been like, "Yo, get this guy out of the building." Like,
Shut up, stop.
Like, I know if say I'm playing basketball, if someone is heckling me, it's just going to make me want to play better. And I don't usually these guys are so mentally tough. Having one fan say something stupid isn't going to make them break down. It's going to just make them want to shut them up. And these guys are just. It's not a home court advantage with these guys. They're hurting their home team.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually surprised. Usually you see like security step in when they get that close on the court and trying to talk to the players like that. But
yeah, he was basically on the court.
Yeah, and
right.
I've seen in most cases. I think it was. Did you guys happen to see that Westbrook video where he tells the guy to shut the fuck up?
Yeah.
On courtside. Yeah.
Say with your wife, shut the fuck up.
That's classic Westbrook. But you see the security guard tell that guy to stop talking to Westbrook. But Charlotte, they didn't do anything.
Yeah. I'm happy they didn't. I'm happy with him helping Miami get the win, I guess. I guess he helped. But let's move on to the second round. But before we do that, just a quick first round recap. I'm just going to go. We made picks a couple podcasts ago. And we picked winners of these series and the correct game. So I correctly picked Golden State in 5, San Antonio in 4, OKC in 5. Everything else, I did not get the correct winner and the correct game together. So we're not going to count those. Nick, you got San Antonio in 4, Atlanta in 6, and we're waiting on the conclusion of Indy and Toronto. But you have Indy in 7, so that's who you picked for tonight. And John, San Antonio in 4, OKC in 5, Atlanta in 6, and you could also get Toronto in 7 tonight if your Raps come through in Air Canada.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Let's move on to the second round, pick some of these series. Golden State Warriors and the Portland Trailblazers. Golden State, as we're recording this, Golden State just won earlier today in blowout fashion. They're up 1-0.
Yeah, I think today I don't think that's how the series is going to go. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this series goes six. Depending on how long Steph is out, but I wouldn't be surprised if this series goes 6 games. I think Dame not having to work as much offensively against not having to guard Steph, I think is going to be an advantage. Even though Livingston's a different kind of defender, he's extremely long, and I think actually a lot of times today they played Klay Thompson on him. So I feel like without Steph, eventually I think that tough backcourt in Portland's gonna eventually win a game. It just depends on how long Steph is out. I think if Steph is out in the game 4, I think Portland could win a game, maybe 2. But if he comes back in game 3, it could be a sweep. But I feel like the games are going to be more competitive than when it was today. The Golden State just had a crazy good game, and Portland didn't seem like they could make anything. So I feel like if Portland just made some shots, it would have been a different game.
So who are you picking?
Oh, so I'm going to go with Golden State in 5.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Golden State in 5. I think Portland can win one game, but Steph's likely to come back. And even without Steph, the Warriors are still a great team. So, and a lot of us did not expect the Blazers to be here. So shout out to them for just getting to the second round, but they're going to get knocked out in 5 games.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. No one expected the Blazers to be here. But I'm going to pick Golden State in 6. I feel like Dame and CJ could probably get both games at home, games 3 and 4. I don't think Curry is going to be rushed back. I don't think he plays game 3 or 4, possibly a return at home in game 5. But I'm not a doctor. I have no idea what's going on with his knee. But yeah, I'm going to pick Golden State in 6.
Okay. I think the only way he comes back before game 4 is if it's say Portland wins the next game Tuesday and they win game 3. I think that's the only way. I think he's definitely not coming back for game 3, even though he said it's a possibility or whatever today. I feel like he's only going to come back if he would have only come back if Portland would have won today and then won Tuesday or something. I don't think they're going to rush him back unless they're really down in the series or something.
Right. Yeah, and that's what would have made the Clippers Warriors series so interesting, especially if Paul and Griffin weren't hurt, because I believe the Clippers would have the advantage to win that series. So there's just so much intrigue as to when Curry comes back, if he does come back, if they're already facing elimination. So we missed out on all those storylines and intrigue with that series, with those injuries. But moving on, San Antonio, OKC. San Antonio put on a clinic last night and demolished OKC in game 1. But who do you have winning the rest of the games in the series?
Kind of like the other series we just talked about. I think that the game 1 isn't going to be isn't foreshadowing what the rest of the series is going to be like. I think San Antonio, whenever you have Durant and Westbrook, you're going to win a couple games if they're healthy. It's just I find it hard to believe that even with how good San Antonio is, that they won't win at least 2. So I'm going to say San Antonio in 6.
Yeah, no, I'm actually going to go with the same thing. I think Durant and Westbrook win them 2 games, but that team's too inconsistent. They showed flaws, I think, against Dallas, and that's not going to cut it against San Antonio. They're too good of a team, too good in the playoffs. And, LaMarcus Aldridge was crazy last night, so it's going to be tough for OKC to win this series.
So you're San Antonio in 6, Nick?
Yep.
So I really want OKC to win just because I love Westbrook and Durant. I love their post-game comments. Everything they say is comedic gold. It's so good. But picking against the Spurs is tough. And I don't think I can do it. I really want to, but I don't think I can. I'm going to go San Antonio in 7. And I hope it is a true 7-game series. I think this has the chance to be a classic one.
I agree with Parth in the fact that I definitely want OKC to win. I would love this.
Outside of Miami, I'm rooting for OKC. I want more Durant and Westbrook post-game comments. They either Villanueva and Mark Cuban a couple weeks ago. That was fantastic. I loved every second of it. And I love those, like you mentioned, Westbrook telling that fan to sit down and shut up and just enjoy the game with his wife. That was fantastic too. I want to see more of those guys.
Yeah, and I think this series will really show you. Well, one thing I wanted to add, I feel like everybody, first of all, wants KD and Durant to win. I feel like everybody wants OKC to win because it seems like those guys are so likable. Everybody loves them, but they just haven't. Their crunch time offense is such a big problem. And I think this series will really show if Billy Donovan is a good coach or not because he's going against arguably the best coach in the game. I don't think anybody can really argue that anybody's ahead of him, again, ahead of Popovich. So I think this series will really show you, if Donovan is an improvement over Brooks, in my opinion. I think this is the series where he's got to test it because they beat San Antonio two times in the playoffs or just once when Brooks was the coach.
They beat them once. I think they've matched up twice, and they're both 1-1.
And the
Yeah,
second time, I think Ibaka missed a couple games and he came back and he was injured.
yeah, you're right. So that's why I think this is a big series for Billy Donovan because, in my opinion, it's kind of seems like him and Brooks have been there hasn't been much of a difference, and the crunch time offense definitely hasn't been any different in my opinion.
All right, let's move on to the East. Cleveland at Atlanta. They played last year in the Eastern Conference Finals when Cleveland swept Atlanta. Atlanta was really banged up that series. I guess Cleveland was too, but Cleveland also has LeBron James. So does the year make any difference?
I think Cleveland's going to run through the rest of the East as we kind of talked about earlier, but Atlanta's got some interesting matchups where I think if T comes ready to play every night, and I like that if they put Millsap on LeBron, I think that'd be an interesting matchup. Millsap's a really good defender, and I think LeBron has a tougher time with guys who are bigger and who can because normally LeBron has kind of lost his step, and when he tries to just run through everybody, I think he has a tougher time against those bigger guys. And the Millsap's he's a pretty thick guy, so I think Atlanta's going to steal a couple games actually, but I think this will be the toughest series that Cleveland has until the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I agree with John. This is likely to be the most consistent team they're going to face.
Yeah. So Cleveland in 6. I don't know if I said that. So that's what I'm saying.
Cleveland in 6. All right. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I hate to be copying John because it takes the fun out of it, but I'm going to go with Cleveland in 6 as well. I feel like the Hawks can win 2 games. Jeff Teague's played a lot better. And Paul Millsap's been great in some of the games. But this will probably be the best team they face, but the Cavs will be able to handle it.
Yeah, I hate to agree as well. Cleveland in 6 for me.
Actually, I'm gonna change mine to Cleveland in 5. Just I got to be different. So.
All right, you know what? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna say Cleveland in 5 instead of 6, but I think they're gonna be close. I think they're gonna be tough games.
Yeah, I think it'll be close. All right, let's go. Moving on, Miami and Toronto.
This is an interesting series. I like Miami just because Toronto's been so sketchy in the playoffs, and Miami they had some really weird games against Charlotte where they would, they'd play well. They just go in they're so hot and cold in games, which is kind of interesting. A lot of times you don't see that. You usually see teams have like bad games or good games. But I like Miami, and I would probably take them in 6 against Toronto.
This is a tough series. I mean, Toronto wins in Game 7. It says a lot about them. Maybe they're trying to get over their playoff woes. But I feel like the Heat have veteran presence. And, Joe Johnson killed the Raptors a few years ago in Brooklyn against the Raptors. So I'm going to go with the Heat in 7.
I will also pick Miami, and I think they'll do it. I think it'll take 7. I think Toronto, it'll be difficult for Miami. Actually, I'll take that back. I'll go Miami in 6 because I think they'll have to win it at home. I forgot Toronto has home court advantage in this series, so Toronto would have the Game 7. But I'll go with Miami in 6.
Yeah, I feel like Miami can do it in 7 just because I feel like Toronto hasn't been that crazy at home, as good as they should be with their home crowd.
Agreed, but you never know. All right, final topic of the day, guys. I was watching Russell Westbrook play, and then I guess the next night I was watching CJ McCollum, and I was like, man, I really, really enjoy watching these two play. So I thought I'd pose a question to you guys. Who are your favorite players in the league to watch? And we can break this down by position. So let's just start out with point guards. I'll start first. For me, it's Russell Westbrook. I like watching Curry, but Westbrook is there's just something about his athleticism and explosiveness that I can't get enough of. And his demeanor, his attitude. I like that he's an asshole on the court. He's super competitive. Easily my favorite point guard to watch.
You can go ahead on this one, Nick.
I'll go with Westbrook as well. I mean, especially when Kevin Durant's out, Westbrook's just a man on a mission. He's so aggressive, so athletic, so physical. I mean, like he's definitely an interesting player, and it's like he never runs out of energy sometimes too. That's why I also love him. And he's everywhere. Sometimes he's like supercharged. So Westbrook for me at the point guard.
I think there's so many good point guards, but I think if I had to choose one, I would pick Isaiah Thomas. I find it fascinating that he's like 5'9", and he somehow gets in the lane. He's so strong, he absorbs contact so well, and he's such a brilliant ball handler, and he's clutch. He's not afraid to take big shots. Man, I love guys with like a chip on their shoulder, and you can tell that he feels he has a big chip on his shoulder. Like he always feels like people are counting him out. So I like Isaiah Thomas.
It's a good choice. I also want to give Chris Paul a quick shout out because he doesn't quite do as many flashy things as he used to, but 98% of the time that dude makes the correct play, and he's incredible. He's been elite for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to give him a quick shout out. All right, moving on. Shooting guards. I've always been a big D Wade fan, but he hasn't quite been. Of course, I have to compare him to 08-09 D Wade, and that flash was incredible. But now I think it's CJ McCollum. I love his offensive game. He doesn't quite have the defense just yet. I don't know if he ever will, like a Jimmy Butler type. But his offensive game, he's so good off the dribble. He has so many moves. He's really crafty, skilled in the mid range. That's my kind of two guard.
I'm gonna go with a two guard. My favorite guy, I'm gonna have to go with Jimmy Butler. I used to hate him, but now he's gotten so much better. You gotta respect his game. He plays well on both ends of the floor, and when he's healthy, he's a good offensive player, and he can lock somebody down on D too. So I love Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that you said CJ McCollum, Parth, because that's what I was gonna pick. He's so fun to watch. He's got he's a good shooter, and off the dribble, he's just kind of like got that street ball kind of game where he's not blazing quick. He's just got like I was watching him when Iggy was guarding him today, and he had this one like hesitation dribble, and he just takes up so much distance with one dribble. You can tell he's one of those guys where he's athletic, but he's just he's kind of crafty. And
he's got a skill-based game, not an athleticism-based game.
Yeah, and he's athletic though. He's like he's not. He gets kind of overshadowed, I think, by Dame because Dame is so athletic. But yeah, he's just fun to watch. I like McCollum. I think he's gonna be a really good NBA player for a long time, and he's not a bad defender. I think people are kind of hating on it, but he tries on defense. He's just not there yet.
All right, small forward. I think this will probably be the toughest choice of all of us. I think we'll probably all have different answers for this one. But I wanted to go with KD, but I'm gonna say Paul George, just because he brings it a little bit more on the defensive end while still doing similar things offensively. I would say Kawhi because he's the best two-way three in my opinion, but Kawhi seems more fundamentally sound and maybe plays a little bit more upright than Paul George. Paul George has a little bit more flavor to his game, so I enjoy watching that. And Paul George is a really good defender as well. So Paul George is my guy.
I would love to go with KD, but I'm going to go with LeBron James. I feel like especially at this time of year, we're getting closer to the finals. LeBron takes it to another level, and I love watching LeBron's passing ability. Some of the passes he makes, it requires so much upper body strength, off balance, throwing with one hand across the court and spot on passes. I love watching that aspect of LeBron's game. And then when he just catches fire and he's just too powerful to stop going to the rim.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. I wanted to pick KD, but I like Paul George as well. I think his ability to just take guys off the dribble, and he's improved his long-range game tremendously, and he's always been a great defender. And, people forget, like 2 years ago, he was the next big thing before Kawhi, before, Steph really improved. Paul George was the guy that everybody was talking about, and he had that injury that kind of, now he's in the back of people's minds. People don't think about him as much, but he's so fun to watch and still very athletic. I like PG as my go-to small forward to watch.
Yeah, I'm surprised we agreed on this, John. I thought someone else would pick KD, so I didn't.
Yeah. And there's so many good ones. I mean, Kawhi, I guess Melo's not really, people wouldn't really say Melo anymore, but there's three guys that really anybody that are all good choices.
Also, no Gordon Hayward for you, John?
No, I do love Gordon Hayward, but he might be my number 2. I actually forgot about him, so I guess that says something.
Yeah, I think it's not that much of your favorite.
Yeah, Paul George is my favorite to watch, but Gordon Hayward's also up there.
Fair enough. All right, moving on to power forwards. This is also a tough choice for me because I love Chris Bosh, love what he does, but just because he hasn't been on the court, I'm going to go with Paul Millsap. I love his versatility. He can defend, he can play make, he can shoot, he can attack the basket, he can dunk on people. He has it all. I enjoy watching Paul Millsap do his thing for the Atlanta Hawks.
I'm going to go with Draymond Green here. Playmaking ability at the power forward position. I think that's huge. It's huge for what the Warriors do coming into that pick and roll with Curry. And then he's just so tough. I mean, he's so undersized, and he still plays such great defense on bigger power forwards than himself. So enjoy watching Draymond play.
Yeah, I think Paul Millsap. I wasn't sure if I was going to put Draymond at power forward or not. But I'm going to go with Paul Millsap. I love guys that give it their all on both ends, and he's improved his defense so much. I think Zach Lowe had him 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year voting this year. So he was really good, and he's just an all-around polished player, and he's very, he's humble. He doesn't, you don't ever see him mouthing off, or kind of just keeps everything underneath, and he's just even keel guy on the court, and he's fun to watch. I like Paul Millsap too.
I'm also surprised no one picked Anthony Davis here. Any reason why? No Anthony Davis for you guys?
Yeah. I thought about it, but I don't like that. Sometimes he just doesn't seem aggressive enough. Like, he's really fun to watch, but on a nightly basis, sometimes he just doesn't seem there. I don't know. I like guys who just are kind of like have that killer instinct, And I feel like he doesn't have that yet.
Yeah, and I would agree with John in that fact. Sometimes he's not as aggressive as he should be going into every game. From the start, he should be attacking, but sometimes he doesn't start attacking until late in the second or maybe even the second half.
Interesting. All right, let's move on to the center position. This is the one I had the most trouble with. I'm going to say Hassan Whiteside for now because he's been great for Miami this playoffs and the last basically year and a half. He's exciting on defense. He can catch basically anything that's thrown up to the basket, so he's great at that. DeAndre Jordan's also really fun at that, but I also like watching Hassan Whiteside shoot free throws. If you haven't, it's really interesting. Go check it out. But I think moving forward, next year and beyond, it's got to be Cat. It's got to be Karl Anthony Towns for the same reasons I've mentioned with Paul Millsap, versatility all throughout. So for right now, it's Hassan Whiteside, but it's going to be Karl Anthony Towns moving forward.
Yeah, I'm going to make my first biased pick of the night. The only thing I can enjoy on the Nets is watching Brook Lopez. I mean, he doesn't do it in a smooth way at all, so it makes it more interesting to watch, but he's a talented 7-footer, so I got to show Brook some love.
So I'm so happy you said that. I was going to go with Draymond Green because of the reasons you said earlier about how he could just, he's undersized, but, his ability to just play basically everywhere on the floor on defense, and he's versatile on offense. But I'm going to go with Robin Lopez. He's got the best hook shot in the NBA, I would say. And that thing is automatic. He's got a little mid-range game. He plays some defense. He's got that crazy hair. And he seems like he's always getting into it with people. I know him and Chris Paul got into it this year. And then Robin Lopez is always fighting the mascots too, which adds some comedic relief to NBA games. So I like me some Lopez.
So
That's funny how we all picked our favorite team centers.
Yeah.
The centers aren't dead.
Yeah, I think Robin Lopez is a great choice for the mascot thing. I wasn't even thinking about that when I was thinking about my center position pick. But yeah, the mascot thing is hilarious. I love when him and Brooke both do that.
It's funny how much Brooke and Robin, like, I don't think they hate each other in real life, but whenever they're asked, in a press conference about each other, they say such mean stuff. It's mad funny.
Just brothers being brothers, I guess.
Yep.
Do you say bad stuff about your brother, John?
Maybe if
In a playful sense?
yeah, in a playful sense, yeah, I do. Me and him are just like polar opposites, and so there's like little things where if you knew him, it's like, I make fun of when people who know him are like, oh yeah, that's so true. So yeah, I can see how they can relate to that.
All right, well, that wraps it up for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
We'll see you next week.
All right, guys.